everybody, Jamin here from Game Show. Nintendo released Super Mario Maker a couple weeks ago. It's a game that you've probably seen ads for everywhere. There's actually an ad for it on my Kindle Paperwhite of all places. Anyway, it's this game where you can construct your own Mario levels and then share them over the internet. And though most everyone agrees that it's a fun and intuitive level editor, there's been, a little bit of criticism that the game is inundated with uninspired and kind of lousy Mario levels. Writing for the Washington Post, Michael Thomsen had complained that the few creative levels that are being lost among the gaping archive of disposable failures, which is quite an indictment. And I think this has a ring of truth to it. They're either really, really simplistic or they're trollishly difficult. The latter category coming from this long tradition of making these really evil Mario levels that have popped up in the modding community for years and years and years. Many of the top-rated ones, at least in the early going, tend to be these Rube Goldberg type contractions where you press nothing at all and then all this crazy stuff automatically happens. I'll link to a couple of them obviously in the description. So this got me thinking, why does the internet kind of suck so much at being creative when it comes to designing Mario levels? So I think there's a couple opinions about why this might be. The game writer Brendan Keogh chalks it up to the game being new and the creators are inexperienced, saying that making a bad game is part of the learning process to making a good game. And this is something that you've seen a lot in other user-generated games like Media Molecule's Little Big Planet, for example, which took some time for people to actually create some things that were going to have some meaning. Patricia Hernandez at Kotaku had said that Mario Maker just needs better curation tools so that you can separate the good from the bad. I think that's something that one of my favorite games, Trials, has done for quite some time, where they have obviously a rating system, but they really do a good job of handpicking the levels that are going to be emblematic of the types of things that you can create inside of Trials. Off-World offers the possibility that the editor actively encourages creation of these crazy, vandalistic, over-the-top levels, often to its own detriment. So there's a lot of forces at play that maybe explain why some of the levels, or a lot of the levels aren't really that great. In any case, if you look kind of outside the world of games, though, I have a different explanation for, why at this point, Mario levels are still something that's outside of most people's depths. If you ask me, it has a lot to do with this concept of generativity, which is something that we've discussed before on the show. But generativity is an idea from Jonathan Zittrain, a social theorist and professor of internet law at Harvard. And basically, a system has generativity when it empowers an audience to use it to create things that people who made the system had never thought of before. So a great example is obviously YouTube, the medium that I am currently speaking to you on. So when Sir Tim Berners-Lee was using hypertext to create the World Wide Web, he had no idea that there would be these people using his invention to express their own ideas. That is to say that the internet at its most creative is when it's doing stuff, it goes against the intentions of its platform creators. Certainly for the folks who created YouTube, they probably could not have expected that the number of things that would be created on YouTube someday would be, sort of the current state of affairs. Or if you look at a game like Minecraft, that's a great expression of this. If it was up to notch, for example, Minecraft would have been this survival-ish roguelike thing where you kill dragons. But because it was developed in open beta and people could start experimenting with it before the game was completed, people started making all these amazing things, architecture and microcomputers and all this amazing stuff. Machinima became super popular. The Let's Play as a genre became something that was codified through Minecraft. It's also really important to remember that Minecraft's EULA, the terms that dictate how you can use it, they remained really, really open. So Mojang actively encouraged people to mod it, and that led to things that Notch and the design team could have never possibly imagined, like having the UN use it to allow local people to help redesign impoverished public spaces, or Howard's driving technology like Microsoft's HoloLens. With Mario Maker, I'm not so sure that the player's given the same level of openness. It's pretty much tools just for making Mario levels, which is what people are doing with it. So I don't know if they could potentially take a page from the Notch playbook. It's like, maybe there's a way in which you can encourage openness. But I think that part of the problem there is that Nintendo historically has not been a company that's really open to the idea that people make things with their own tools. And Mario Maker is really unusual in that respect because it goes against a lot of what Nintendo has done in the past. Remember, Nintendo was initially very reticent, even to have certainly with the Nintendo Wii, was really reticent to allow players to play with each other on the internet. You had these really long friend codes, and it was difficult to find people. So Nintendo, in a lot of ways, has been very resistant to some of the larger themes that have been happening in terms of encouraging and engendering creativity on the internet. And so maybe that's part of the problem with Mario Maker, where it's open in a sense, but not quite open enough that you can really do some really super amazing things with it. Anyway, hopefully people will start to find ways to create games games that step outside the boundaries of the familiar Mario lexicon. So hopefully can unleash the true creative potential of the internet. Anyway, what do you think? Do you find a lot of the Mario Maker levels are not that great, or do you have some of your favorites, or do you think I'm just kind of just being unnecessarily critical? Hash it out in the comments, and if you like what you saw, please subscribe. I'll see you all in a bit.